Hello, welcome to Poppin Predictions, where we believe movies aren't over at the end, but are meant to be continued. You're here with Andy and Marqueze, where we ponder what happens in a story once the credits begin to roll. You can find more information about our podcast on Twitter at Poppin Predict and on Instagram at poppinpredictions.pod. Give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you use. Now, on today's episode, we will be reviewing the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a comedy drama written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. This film follows a faded television actor and a stunt double as they strive to achieve fame and success in the final years of Hollywood's golden age in 1969 in Los Angeles. This film is rated R for language throughout, some strong graphic violence, drug use, and sexual references. And as always, spoilers ahead. All right, Andy, tell us, what happens in this film?
Bro, I don't even know. There's so much stuff that, it's so much happens, but also so little. It's really, it's wild. So it follows Rick Dalton. He is kind of like this huge Western TV movie star. And it kind of opens up with him at a restaurant, and he meets he meets up with some dude played by the guy who plays the Godfather. I can't remember his name, but the guy who plays the Godfather is the guy he meets up with, him. He basically tells him that you either adapt with the times or this is the end of your career. And so Rick comes out and he's like, I don't know if I have a career anymore. It's funny because this movie it's a star-studded cast. If you have not seen this movie, Leonardo DiCaprio's in it, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, a bunch of other famous people. Dakota Fanning's in this movie, a bunch. What?
I was about to say that, yeah, Dakota Fanning.
Yeah, Dakota Fanning. Yeah, a lot of, and there's more. I just can't think of all of them off the top of my head. But this movie has a star-studded cast, and so basically, it's a story of Rick Dalton trying to adjust with the times. And he has his best friend who's also a stunt double, Cliff Booth. Rick is played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Cliff Booth is played by Brad Pitt, and they're best friends. And it's kind of funny because they talk about how Rick is the actor, he does all the stuff, while Cliff Booth is the person that actually does all of the really cool things. He's the actual cowboy, where Rick is the one that's playing one sort of cool thing. And so it's kind of about Rick coming to terms with the fact that his career might be over, or he has to adapt and change to it. And that story kind of comes to a climax where the story of Charles Manson comes into play here. It comes to a really huge, stereotypical Quentin Tarantino finale with the last 40 minutes. This movie's 2 hours and 40 minutes long.
Oh my goodness.
And the last 40 minutes are really what, Marqueze and
the only point in the movie.
Marqueze and I might debate over this, but it's really the only savings grace of the movie is, in my opinion, is the last 40 minutes, because the first 2 hours, the first 2 hours of the movie, it's weird. It was I think Marqueze and I were both talking about this, and we're it was entertaining. It wasn't the acting was great, but there wasn't much of a plot. It was just watching these people going through their daily lives, while also watching Rick Dalton come to grips with this is potentially the end of his career. But it just was kind of weird, and it kind of ended with Charles Manson's people coming and trying to break into the house, and then there's this huge fight scene, which we'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about your thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, so I'm not a huge Quentin Tarantino fan, but I'm a decent fan. I like most of his works. I would say a vast majority of his work I enjoy. And so I was very excited to see this. This was my second time trying to watch a movie, and I put trying because the first time I watched this movie, and 25, 30 minutes in, I turned it off. Not because I didn't think it had the possibility to be a good movie, but it was not gripping in any way for the first 30 minutes. I just remember at the moment I was trying to watch something entertaining, and I was like, you know, with Quentin Tarantino, I'm expecting something really entertaining, but 30 minutes in, I was like, what's going on, you know?
Right.
So watching this fully with you, I felt that most through this movie. Like I was sitting there an hour in, like, okay, hour and a half, 2 hours. I was like, nope, I did not make a mistake the first time. This is a boring movie. This movie is boring as hell. Like, and I mean, even though the scenes themselves are kind of entertaining and what's going on, they're not entertaining enough to make up for the fact that there's just no plot, seemingly. Like, you're just following an actor and his stunt double as they just do different shoots, as they are just going about their day, as they're, you know, interacting with other Hollywood, you know, personalities. It's just seemingly going nowhere. Like, there's just nothing to happen. But about you know, 2 hours in, there's one scene that happens where Cliff, the stunt double, picks up this hippie girl and takes her back to her place, and it's this ranch. This ranch that used to be for acting for a lot of actors. He used to do scenes over there, and so he's familiar with it. And so it's a big ranch where her and like all her hippie girlfriends are, and then they go. And like, so Cliff is like, I don't believe this, you know, I can't wait to see this, so I'll take you there. Takes her there, a whole bunch of stuff goes down. But like, this is the first time where at any point in the film, I see a character where I see also a conflict, and I see him try to resolve the conflict, and there's an antagonist. Like it actually seems like an actual story,
right? Yeah,
down for the first time, and that's just 2 hours into the film. And then there's a little pause for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but then I would say the last 30 to 40 minutes of this film are solid. Like This is where I'm expecting, okay, this is all making sense there. And like, the thing is, it's not like, oh, I was just confused before and now it's making sense. It was there was just nothing going on before. There was just nothing going on before. And then finally, now we get some stuff all coming together. Yeah.
I think for me, I don't know. I definitely agree with you. And I remember like when I finished watching the movie with you, I was like, this is not that great. But I don't know. Part of the fact that I didn't realize, that I didn't realize it was based off of semi-true, it's true events, but not 100% accurately portrayed. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't realize that. So like, I think that because I didn't know that, I think I might have lost out on some of the storytelling that was happening. So for those of you who might be on the same boat, like Sharon Tate was an actual person. Like, she was a real person. And so she was a famous actress that I think she was born in Italy, moved to the United States, and was in Hollywood. And she was really like the up and comer of that time. And then of course during the same time, Charles Manson's getting his reign in. For those who don't know Charles Manson is the famous cult leader that kind of recruited young women and like had them do really really terrible things. And so in real life, on August 9th, 1969, which the movie kind of shows, like this is when like the climax of the movie occurs. Like on August 9th, 1969, like there was like an actual murdering take place where Charles Manson sent some of his people over to Sharon Tate's house and brutally murdered her. She was pregnant at the time, so murdered her baby, and whoever else was in the house. So what Once Upon a Time does is it kind of changes that complete narrative. And makes it more of like a fairy tale. So similar how like a lot of fairy tales start with Once Upon a Time, like this is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like the ending of the movie changes it so that instead of Sharon Tate getting murdered and like everyone else that were in the house getting murdered, like they get distracted by Rick Dalton's rant. And instead of going after Sharon Tate, they're like, wow, like, you know what? Like that was Rick Dalton. Like Rick Dalton taught us that murder was okay. We should kill him as the ultimate lesson. Little did they know that Cliff Booth was going to come there, save the day, and like completely, beat the crap and kill two out of them. And then
it's graphic.
It's graphic. It is typical Quentin Tarantino style. Like the last 40 minutes, typical Quentin Tarantino, where like, you know, Cliff has his, I mean, first of all, Cliff Booth is like high off his mind because he smoked a cigarette that was laced with acid. Or So like he's like not sure what's really real, but like he even still like he has his dog like eat like bite down on some of the people. Like it was really graphic, and then like he threw like a snow globe or something at no, he threw a can of dog food at another person's face and like shattered their nose, and then started smacking their face against the wall. And then,
it's so graphic. Like describing it really does not do justice.
I know. Here's the thing, Marqueze was like.
About to call me out, Andy.
I was so scared, man. I was so scared when we were watching that movie together because like you were just like losing your mind. You were like crying. Like I thought you were gonna start crying, man. Like I was like, do we need to pause the movie?
I just need to explain so the audience knows. Okay, I have to explain myself. So watching this movie, it's once again, even though there's slightly entertaining things, it's a fairly boring movie.
Not a lot is going on.
Yeah, and so like all of a sudden, and I'm talking about like. You do not really get preparation. Like they let you know they're gonna try to rob.
You go from like zero to a million.
It's
like
so
not even 0 to 100, like
fast.
0 to a million in a matter of seconds.
It goes from a fairly boring movie to not only a graphic scene, but like I am talking. This is definitely. I mean, I would say this is out of all his movies that are pretty intensely graphic. This is incredibly graphic.
This is up there.
This is up there. This is up there with some of those scenes, and it's fast. Like I said, like when I'm watching Kill Bill, you know, like from the very beginning of the movie, I understand, oh my God, there's going to be a lot of blood, a lot of graphic,
right.
You know, all this. This movie, you get not a hint of that, and then just in this one scene for like 5 minutes, it is nonstop screaming. Like there's a character that are just screaming. So
she's just screaming nonstop.
It's nonstop blood, and like I had headphones, and so it's blood curly screams, super high volume in my ear, mixed with this the most amount of like blood, heads being crushed, smashed, and you're just sitting here, you're like, what? And the people being burned alive, like it's just such an intense scene for this not being prepared to where like as we were watching it, I had to pause the movie and just be like, dude, I just need a minute. Like I just need a minute just to collect myself because that was so intense. And then like we resumed like a minute later, but
yeah, it wasn't like a super long pause, but I was just like, whoa,
so
like
fast, bro. It was so fast and so much. I couldn't.
Yeah, and then of course like it ends with Leonardo DiCaprio like torching, like he had a flamethrower from one of his previous movies, so like he took the flamethrower out,
literally
and, like,
torches this girl,
torched her to death. It was absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Which I think that whole final scene was kind of like an ultimate like screw you to his critics, because a lot of his critics like give him a hard time on the amount of violence that he has in the movies, and like a lot of times like people will be like, how can you have so much violence in the movie? And like, you know, people see that, and like it you know, it's like the whole video games argument that like video games people make people violent. Like they were saying that the same thing about Quentin Tarantino movies, that like, you know, these violent scenes make people violent, and Quentin Tarantino's like, no, like like he's taken his firm stance, which I agree with, like taking his firm stance that like his movies do not cause people to be violent and stuff like that, which I agree. So like that was like the whole setup of that final thing was like these people were like, you know, Rick Dalton is the one that taught us to be violent, taught us to be murder. We should teach him a lesson here.
I can see that even more so now. So it's like almost directly talking against the audience of
basically like subtly talking to his critics and basically saying like, screw you, like
this is what you think of me, I'll smash your head in.
Exactly. Honestly, he's like, you know what? Like, if you think that's the case, I'm just gonna bash your face in and set you on fire. Like, that's just what he's saying. But like, that's what I kind of appreciate. I know that like when I watched, I got a lot more appreciation from this movie when I was doing some like more behind the scenes research into the movie. It doesn't save it for me. Yeah. But I think that I got a new sense of appreciation because like I don't know if you know this, because I didn't know this at the time, but like the day that Sharon, like they say that the day that Sharon Tate died was the day that the 60s ended. It was the day. It was the day that you know, people started locking their doors at night because people previously didn't do that, and so after the Sharon Tate murder, people got a little bit more suspicious of others and stuff like that. So it takes like a complete different turn and fairy tale, and kind of gets you thinking of like what would have happened if Sharon Tate didn't die, which also I think is part of the reason why Margot Robbie wasn't in the movie so much, because it might have been somewhat disrespectful to kind of like change Sharon Tate's like narrative, change her, like we don't know too much about her. And like Margot Robbie was hardly in the movie.
I mean, so I was watching, as we were watching, I'm like, oh, cool, Margot Robbie. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, what is the point of her character?
No, exactly. Like, I was totally thinking that, like, what's the point of her character?
She doesn't even have a single important scene.
The only reason why Margot Robbie is playing Sharon, I don't understand why Sharon Tate's in the movie. Like, I feel like they could have alluded to her, or even do like a silhouette of her head at some point, like for when it's critically important to have Sharon Tate in the movie. They could have done like a silhouette of her, or like literally any other actor or actress rather. So I literally think the only reason why they picked Margot Robbie is because they were like, oh wow, Margot Robbie is a household name. Like we know who she is.
I agree.
Like,
I fully agree.
She puts butts in the seats. So like
people will care about this character if I cast Margot Robbie as the actress.
Exactly. Which isn't anything to take away from Margot Robbie's performance. Like for the few scenes that she was in the movie, she did great. But like it, you know, we talked a little bit about this when we were recording our episode for Whiplash, but like, you know, J.K. Simmons is the only person I can imagine playing Fletcher. Literally anyone can play.
Literally anybody can play this role.
Literally anyone could have played this role. Like, and I'm not trying to, like I said, I'm not trying to take anything away, but like,
it's so basic.
Sharon Tate's role in this movie was so insignificant. Like it almost was like just like if it was. It just was there to help with the setting of the movie, but like, I don't know, like you could have just easily talked about her.
It was unnecessary.
It was kind of unnecessary, but I think that was really important. I think that like it was interesting to see how like this was like the end of the golden age, the golden age of films. Again, like I didn't fully understand these concepts while I was watching the movie, so I was a little bit lost. Just because I didn't know that, so I was definitely a me thing. And so I feel like if I were to have watched it again with this kind of understanding, I don't think I would love it, but I think that I would like it a little bit more because of that. And it took me forever to really grasp the fact that like Charles Manson and like all of that were in the movie. Like I think if you didn't,
like you could easily like I really did not know. You could easily watch this entire movie and have zero idea. Like that's what's happening.
Yeah, and it's like this movie really relies on you knowing this historical stuff, because if you don't know this historical information, like this is just it's just like nothing. Like it literally nothing. It's like Seinfeld. It's a movie about nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so but like I thought that the acting was really good, and I felt like the scenes that were super entertaining were, of course, the scene when Brad Pitt shows up at the ranch, which I actually found out while I was doing a little bit extra digging that like that was the same ranch that Charles Manson used for his people. Like that was pretty kind of cool to see. I thought that whole ranch scene was pretty cool. I thought not necessarily the monologue, but the scene that Rick Dalton has with the little girl actress, when like he's explaining the point of the book about how like it's about a horse like wrangler or whatever that like, you know, had an accident and can't get as good as others, so he's getting used to being useless. Like that's obviously a metaphor for Rick Dalton's life, and also kind of a metaphor for Quentin Tarantino. How like there are these new folks coming in and kind of, you know, you forget about the older legends because you have these new rock stars that are in place.
No one cares about Tarantino anymore. They just want Ari Aster's.
Honestly,
it's kind of accurate.
For me, I mean, I'll always I love Quentin Tarantino movies, so like I'll never fully forget. But like I do love Ari Aster movies, and so like kind of true. Like that's half true.
All I have to say is there's a new age.
Yes, exactly.
Put it that way.
There's like a new age of like directors, a new age of actors. coming in. It was really funny because Brad Pitt, there was like, I was watching an interview Brad Pitt had, and or I don't know, it wasn't an interview, it was a speech. It was like, I think it was like an award show that Leo and Brad were presenting an award at, or I think they might have won an award, whatever. And Brad was like talking to Quentin Tarantino. He's like, how do I prepare for this role about a washed up actor at the end of his career? And Quentin Tarantino was like, oh, just be yourself. Just be yourself. I was just like, oh, roasted.
Cold-blooded.
Like, oh no, it was wild. It was wild.
That's too funny.
I think like throughout Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like there's obviously a lot of references to Quentin's previous work.
Inglourious Basterds was the one that like I most directly noticed.
Yes, that was like the one I was like very clear. But there are also like, I forgot the examples. Like this is obviously the worst part of the conversation that we're having, but like there were other metaphors. I just can't remember off the top of my head, so I'm sorry. But like there were other other things.
So is this his final film then? Kind of. I feel like this is almost.
They were kind of alluding to that. So like Quentin Tarantino has always talked about like he's going to do 10 movies and like his 10th movie is going to be his last one. But
which one is this?
This is 9. This is 9.
Okay,
this is his 9th movie. Which I'm not sure if Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2 count as two separate movies or if they don't, but either way, he's at 9. Like that's the number that he's at. And I think people have been saying that this might be his last one, but I don't know. I think that he can come back. I feel like he needs to come back and do a 10th one. Like I wouldn't be satisfied if I was Quentin Tarantino with ending on a movie that was like this. Like
not at all, dude. Not at all. This to me, I mean, I could see the beauty in this. I could see how he would have made this and been like, oh yeah, like, especially when you have the idea of mind of like, I mean, he loves to write alternative histories. He loves that. Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, he loves to write alternative histories. So, but the thing is, people know about the history of slavery. People know about the history of the Holocaust that happened in Nazi Germany. Not everyone knows about Sharon Tate being murdered at the end of the 1960s by the Manson family.
People.
Like that's a much more specific. Like you need to actually know that history, and so to have a whole film that is very loosely based on it, because you could watch the first 2 hours once again and not know anything about this, and so for maybe a scene or two, and so this film is like even more loosely based on history than the other historical films he makes. And it's based on an event that I'm not gonna say it's insignificant by any means, but it's not nearly as known to the public as African American slavery or the Holocaust.
Yeah, no. What I think would be really wild is if all of Quentin Tarantino movies that I can remember off the top of my head are like take place either present day or in the past. Like imagine like Quentin Tarantino trying to jump into like the future, like a future story. Wow. I don't know what exactly he would do, but like I think that would be pretty wild if he tried to do some sort of futuristic story.
I don't know, that'd be gnarly, and if anyone could do it, he could do it. But I don't know. I mean, I would feel so not happy with this being his last one. Because in a way it feels like the last one.
It was definitely had that like swan sort of like feel, like it was, because it's all about like a like washed up actor like coming to grips with like the new age, and so like it's also could be a symbol to like a washed, like I'm not saying that Quentin Tarantino is washed up, but like like
I don't know, after this film I don't know, bro.
Listen, you can have a bad film and still be great. Like everyone makes mistakes.
You can, but I don't know, bro. This was a misstep, and he needs to correct it. Put it that way.
People did like this movie. Like not everybody. I don't.
I got recommended it by like a couple people, but like
Speaking of recommendations, thank you Z from my grad school for recommending this movie. I actually like this movie, so even though I know we're being critical about this movie, but like I actually enjoyed this movie. So
let me see this on Rotten Tomatoes
for recommending this to us.
This guy, okay, it got 85%. Critics, audience scored at 70%. That's not bad.
Yeah, it was people did like this movie. I think part of the problem is that we've gotten like, not to say that this is a bad thing. I think this is just like the evolution of time, but like we've gotten used to stories that have like really concrete plots that like get you thinking.
Yeah.
And like this movie doesn't do that. Like this movie does not, like this movie obviously has metaphors in it that you could look into, but like it's not like a really big head scratcher, and it doesn't have like a super strong plot.
And I guess with almost like Quarantino, with
Whoa,
Tarantino,
there's his nickname.
with Tarantino films, like I expect to be gripped like from the get go.
Right.
Kill Bill from the get go, Django from the get go, like Pulp Fiction, like all these different movies. Like the opening scenes are great, you know, like within a few minutes, characters are wild and out, like just all this stuff. But like in this movie, it's so incredibly lackluster for 2 hours. If you're making me sit down with like we're watching this movie, right? So an hour and a half through this movie, I paused the movie and I look at you, Andy, and I was just like, bro, what are we watching? Like, I remember like 40 minutes in, you stopped the movie. You were like, dude, is there a plot? Like, did I miss the plot? And I was like, nope, you have not missed it yet. Like, this is
I'm just waiting for the things to make sense.
So it's kind of like, if you're willing to wait for 2 hours, like, yeah, I do think the last 40 minutes is really good. Like, to me, that's like, it's prime Tarantino. Like, it's solid. But, all that being said, doesn't make up for 2 hours of just lackluster entertainment. Like, I just like it's not whether or not the story made sense. Like, obviously this makes more sense than Tenet. Like, it's fine. Like,
yes,
it's not whether
you don't need to rewatch this movie again to get it.
Yeah, you know, like obviously this movie makes sense, and what it's doing, that you can see everything clear cut. But you're just sitting here and you're just like, okay, well, I'm bored. When's this gonna end? You know, like, it was just, and then once the last 40 minutes happens, then you're like when the ending actually came, I was like, please tell me this is not the end of the movie. Like, I wanted more, you know?
Right.
So it's just like, it's not that he can't do it. He obviously can, but I don't know. I feel that it was just, I don't know. It took way too long. This could have easily been an hour 45. And actually probably would have been a lot better, because it'd be harder to have noticed how lackluster and how boring it was, because we would have got to the more important scenes faster. And so, to be honest, I think this would have been a way better movie if he actually made it like an hour and a half, hour 45. But I mean, when's the last time this dude made a movie under 2 hours? Like,
has he ever? I
don't know. Hateful Eight, 3 hours. Django, I don't know how long Django is, but most of his movies are pretty long. And Hateful Eight is a 3-hour movie, and it all takes place in a log cabin with like people just having conversations.
Right.
And that was a 10 times more entertaining movie than this, in my opinion. So I don't know. Like, it's just, I guess he just had a different vision for what he wanted to do with this film, and he wanted to kind of just show, like a failing actor, and it's kind of what you just saw. Like, if you just kind of see a failing actor and a stunt double, and like, little do you know that you're not even told that like I'm thinking Leonardo DiCaprio, you know, the main character, Rick Dalton, is supposed to be like the main one we're following, but in actuality, it's a stunt double, Cliff. Like, he's really the main.
Yeah, Cliff is definitely. I think he's my favorite character in the movie.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like this, like, you know, like almost not superhero, but like he's the ideal, you know, Hollywood man.
I mean, like, he's the cowboy. Like, he is the guy that did all of Rick's stunts. Like, he's it's like Rick is pretending to be Cliff almost. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because, like, I think that there are a lot of kind of funny moments that are mixed in with a lot of like the like random moments throughout this the first 2 hours of the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think it starts off pretty funny. Like, it's not like, you know, like the grab your attention type opening that we usually get from Quentin Tarantino movies, but like, it starts off pretty funny because it's like an interview with Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth, and how, like, you know, the interviewer's like, okay, what do you do? And Rick's like, yeah, like, I play this person in Bounty Law. And then he's like, and then he's like talking to he asks Rick again, like, what's the point of your stunt double? And he's like, oh, well, like, he carries a lot of my loads. Like, he does all the stunts for me, because if I break my ankle, like, we can help production. So, like, this is the point of the stunt double. And then the interviewer is like, do you agree with Rick's description? And he's like what, carrying Rick's load. Yeah, I would agree with that description. I carry his load a lot. Like it was a pretty funny intro to a movie.
Yeah.
And there were like those little funny moments throughout the film, which I think was, kind of appreciated when there's not a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, no. And yeah, like, and that's what you were saying at the very beginning. Like, it's like, even though I was kind of bored and I wanted to turn it off just because there was no plot, nevertheless, like, as you mentioned, though, these scenes are for the most part entertaining. Like, there's a scene where Cliff fights Bruce Lee. And like, it's like dope. Like, oh, what? Like, it's like a cool scene where he fights Bruce Lee. And then there's also scenes where like Rick is like acting and trying to get his like acting together. And like, I mean, a lot of these scenes are cool to watch, but you just feel like you're just watching. Like, you just feel like you're just watching something happen and you're just not even sure what's going on. You know, with Tenet, I didn't know the plot, but I could tell there was a plot.
That just makes one of us here.
I could tell there was a plot, just didn't know. Whereas with this movie, like, or at least like with Tenet, like you could tell there's an ending.
They were trying to make a plot. They're going
to something.
Yeah.
I felt like there was more. There was no towards. There was no tell us. There was no end goal. You know. Whereas I felt like with Tenet, there was even if we didn't know what the hell was going on, there was an end goal that the movie was moving towards that you could tell, okay, it's moving towards something.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with you.
All right, but with all that being said, Andy, luckily he gave you something good to go off of.
I do think that he gave me something to go
but
off of.
How do you see this movie continuing?
Yeah, so like we kind of talked about, I'll give an even briefer conclusion to the movie since we've already kind of talked about the closing. So the movie kind of ends after Leo torches one of the Manson family members. Like the ambulance is all there, the police is all there. They're giving the story to the police and the ambulance about what happened. At some point during the altercation, Cliff got stabbed in the leg, so he's going to the hospital to get that and taken care of. Mm-hmm. So Cliff rides off with the ambulance, and Rick is back at home. And something that we didn't talk a whole lot about, but Sharon Tate and Rowan Polanski, right? That's his name, mm-hmm. Rowan Polanski. He is the next, like they are Rick's next door neighbor, mm-hmm. and so. Rick is walking around he lives in a cul-de-sac. He walks around the cul-de-sac and Rowan comes down his driveway and like, he's asking like, hey, like what happened? So he's like, a bunch of hippies broke into my house, which as much as this movie was kind of like lacked in certain areas, like I just really love whenever some person referred to other people as these dang hippies.
Yeah, they did it all throughout the film, and it's hilarious. Yeah,
it was really funny. So he's like, these dang hippies broke into my house and tried to kill everybody, but we killed them instead. And Rowan was super impressed by that. And Sharon Tate was actually a huge fan of Rick Dalton. Mm-hmm. And so Sharon's like, they're talking from the intercom because they're at the gate and Rowan's at the gate, but Sharon's back at the house. And Sharon's like, hey, do you want to come up? And Rowan was like, gave Rick the thumbs up. So Rick was like, yeah, sure. I'll come up and say hello to you. And this is really important because Rowan is becoming like the next big director. Like he's like, the next Quentin Tarantino, if you will. Mm-hmm. So he's like a big deal. And Rick has always been feeling like he's on the outside looking in. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like he's finally getting permission to move forward. Mm-hmm. And so what I think happens is like, this was like a revitalization of Rick's career. Like, I think that after this, like, I think home invasion movies started to become a bigger thing. At least I think in the 70s, there were more home invasion films that came out.
It's crazy to think that this wasn't a norm. I mean, I was like a norm recognition of, oh yeah, people invade houses, or this stuff happens like before then.
Yeah, I know. It is kind of weird to
life
think
was so
that.
Nice and safe. People would just
right?
kids ride around on their bicycles all day long, no matter what.
It's because everybody was a damn hippie, and they were all smoking pot.
100%.
No. But I think what happens is like, this is part of the fall to Rick's character was like he had to compromise his career because he wanted to continue acting. So he was told the only way that he can continue acting is if he became the villain of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this moment kind of revitalized his career. And the next movie that Rick Dalton does is almost like an autobiographic of what happened,
Mm-hmm.
like in that moment. Where like people tried to break into his house and he plays the hero. And I think what would be so hilarious is, like when in the real events, Cliff Booth is the guy that like kills everyone except for the final person, which like, let's be honest, like Cliff really I honestly think Cliff should get credit for that third kill because he was the one that like,
he did most of the work.
he put, it was like an alley-oop sort of situation where like Cliff put the ball up and, and Rick dunked it down with the flamethrower. So I think it would be really funny if in the movie adaptation of like this home invasion, like Rick is the person that like beats the crap out of everyone. But because Cliff is Rick's stunt double, like Cliff again goes in and like actually does the violent scenes, but in the movie like it's Rick that does it all.
That'd be so funny.
Or maybe Rick gets a sense of confidence because like he's like was finally the person to actually do his stunt, and so maybe Rick gets the confidence to do it himself. And I think what would be also really funny is if Sharon Tate played Rick's wife. Because Rick was married, so Rick was the one who was. So it's like a way for Sharon Tate to continue on with her movie career because she was very much like she had just released a movie prior to her death that like was going to be the movie that was going to take her to the next level. So it would be really interesting to have her in this film to kind of help her kind of like shoot across her career and keep on going. So that's kind of where I kind of see things leaving off.
Okay.
You have anything to add? Do you have anything different?
So I do honestly, I had no idea. You know what? My last couple predictions were fire. This one, I really had no idea, bro.
I'm joking.
This one, I don't know. I didn't have anything, but I like where you're going with it. Yeah, like a revitalization of his film career, a recognition that like, oh, he still got what it takes, Exactly. And so I like the idea of that going on. I like Sharon Tate like becoming his wife or playing his wife or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that idea. The only thing I wonder is, does Charles Manson send more people now to go kill these people? His followers that died.
Well, I'm not sure if that would happen because, of course, according to the real life, what happens is after Sharon Tate's murder, like that's when Charles Manson gets arrested.
Yeah.
So what I think happens is like going off of what happened with Cliff, like Cliff gets taken away. Like Cliff obviously there's a the scene we referred to earlier when he's at the ranch, like he knows that something is off because he used to film there, and he's like, why are there a bunch of these hippies there? And then he makes contact with George, the guy who owns the ranch, and so like obviously he knows that there's a lot of weird stuff going on. So I think that like Cliff kind of is like, hey, like go here because obviously this is where the people came from because he knew them. He recognized them when they broke into the house. So I think that he said either Cliff gets some vigilante justice and takes him out by himself, or he sends the police and like the police goes and like arrests Charles Manson and his family.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I like the idea of a part 2 though to that final scene of more followers being sent, and then there's being a part 2 where Cliff comes to save the day again, and then just on an acid cigarette.
Well, it depends who's directing the second movie because if it's somebody else, I think that it's like the straightforward plot. But if it's Quentin Tarantino, yes. There's going to be blood. There's going to be an explosion. Like they're going to go back to this ranch and completely blow it up because of all these damn hippies. Like they're just going to like. I think that could be like what would happen is like maybe I'll go with the Cliff theory that Cliff maybe convinces Rick to come with them and like they go and take out the ranch because they don't want that to happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine either way. I'm fine with Quentin Tarantino directs it or if somebody else, because he obviously has what it takes. But certain things with like top level, whether it's directors, writers, whatever, is that like you start getting so confident, and this is what people said about Christopher Nolan with Tenet, was that like you kind of get so confident and so egotistical that you feel like whatever you write will be gold, and so you don't really try as hard to kind of like please the audience, but you try more so of like, no, I think this would be great, I think this would be this, I think this would be this, and like you go less for a typical good film, which sometimes works out, and then there's other times where it flops. But hopefully with your sequel and Tarantino's directing, you guys could make a great movie together.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Because we're talking about great directors, and I know that we talked a little bit about like the rating that critics gave it as well as fans gave it. Do you think that this movie would be like as praised and as successful as it is if someone else directed it? Like if it didn't have the Quentin Tarantino name, like if it was someone else, like either this is like their first movie or like one of those, I can't think of like, and I don't want to say Ari Aster, but like another sort of like up and coming director like that does it.
So it could have gone either way. I think it could have got praised more or it could have got crapped on more. I think either one's possible. I think people really would have, even sunk their teeth in harder, and the whole, you didn't even make a plot for this film, dog. Like people would have really sunk their teeth into the idea that like this movie was really boring in the first hour and a half, 2 hours. But I think people would have been even hyper, like more impressed with the finale scene of like, oh wow, like that was intense, that was epic, that was a really epic closer.
I feel like if it was somebody
we have the
else,
next Tarantino,
like, we got the next Quentin Tarantino here. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like I think that like if it would, I feel like more people would not like it if it was a director. But I also think I think that more people would not like it, but you might get some super fans that like actually really like this movie because it wasn't a big name director that did it, and because this person like took like such a huge shot and like such huge inspiration. If it wasn't Quentin Tarantino, like it took huge inspiration from him to make this movie. But yeah, that's kind of my take.
Yeah, no, I mean I agree. Go to rating system.
Yeah, let's do it. So. For those of you that this is your first episode, or even if this isn't and you kind of forgot, it's totally cool. We here at Poppin Predictions use a popcorn size rating scale. So if we give it a small, think of it as like a 1 to 3. Medium is like your 4 to 6. Large is like a 7 to 9, and 10 is a big bucket. You gotta stop what you're doing, go watch this movie. It's really important. And so I'm curious, Marqueze, where does Once Upon a Time in Hollywood fall on our rating scale?
For me, this is a very, very, very strong medium.
Dang. Okay.
I can't, and like as much as I love the ending, as much as I love the idea of alternative histories, I love movies that do that. Like I love what he could do. But none of that excuses really just kind of making a plotless, boring movie for the first 2 hours. Like it just doesn't. Like, I mean, I have nothing else to say. It doesn't. You did great in a lot of other areas, but she would have done great in that part. So for me, it gets a strong medium with a lot of butter.
Yeah. I am actually kind of shocked because I really thought you were going to come in here with your first ever small.
It was a bad.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'd also give it a medium for the exact same reasons. Like, I think if the movie was shorter or if there was more substance to the first, it feels weird saying first 2 hours. I feel like the only way that has any sort of significance is if we ever do the Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League. Let us know if you'd like us to do that.
We've already got recommendations. We've already got
cool.
people.
Never mind. Don't let us know. We're gonna do it.
We're gonna do it eventually.
If you didn't want to see it, skip the episode. Yeah, I agree with you. If it was shorter or if there was more stuff to it, like I could see myself giving it like a soft large, but this is like a pretty solid medium. Like I think that if I'd be curious to rewatch this movie now with the additional context because, like I said, I didn't know that this was loosely like an alternate. Like it was, I didn't know that it was an alternative history.
Yeah.
So I think if I would be curious if I would appreciate it and actually like it more if
Mhm.
I rewatch it again with this knowledge in mind. But like for me, I'm sticking with a medium as well.
Mhm.
But that being said, I'm curious to know, what did you all think of our continuation of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Do you agree with us? Do you think that maybe we just didn't get the movie and that's why we're not kind of digging it? Or like, are we spot on? Like, one or the other, or we kind of, it's whatever. While you're trying to figure that out, follow us on Twitter at Poppin Predict and on Instagram at poppinpredictions.pod to let us know your thoughts on what movie we should do next. Until then, keep popping, everyone.
Peace.